welcome to the NFL Line. The night going right with the Bears and the Lions. Will the Saints make the playoffs? And what is wrong with Cam Newton? All this and more on NFL Goal Line.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome inside another presentation of the NFL Goal Line with Nick and Phil. This is Nick Rice, alongside, of course, Phil Nunziata. We hope to have a very interactive show as well. Perhaps some callers onto the set. Our call-in number for this broadcast is 951-515-4552. Again, it's 951-515-4552. A very interactive and very exciting Week 7 in the National Football League. Phil Nunziata has more on the Monday Nighter going down right now. Phil, what do you have for us over in Chicago?
Well, right now in Chicago, it's looking to be all Bears as they hold a somewhat commanding 10-0 lead. Should actually be a 13-0 lead. The only thing stopping that is the Lions actually blocked a Robbie Gould field goal. But at the moment, the Bears do lead it 10-0 with only 2 minutes left in the second quarter, so we're just about close to halftime. Little interesting moment in this game. Jay Cutler takes a nasty fall after a big hit from Dominican Sue, and he was down for several minutes, ends up leaving the game as Jason Campbell enters the game and scrambles for a few yards. And surprisingly enough, Jay Cutler comes back at the next play after that. There's been a lot of talk over the past year or so, dating back even to the NFC Championship appearance of the Bears, questioning Jay Cutler's toughness. And I think he's trying to put that to bed here tonight on Monday night.
And the Bears certainly would like to have a big divisional win, and Jay Cutler is the key for the Bears in this football game. 9 for 17, 73 yards and a touch in this game so far. He'll be the key for the Bears today, leading 10-0. And obviously, if Chicago can avoid the injury bug at home against a division rival, that will be a big-time test for this team. But several other teams certainly facing what they would not like in the injury department. Phil, what do you have around the National Football League at an injury standpoint?
Well, there's been a few teams that have been bit by the injury bug as of this week. Most notably would be the Jacksonville Jaguars, as Maurice Jones-Drew was carted off the field with their game in the Oakland Raiders this past week. He has already been ruled out for the next game against the Packers and will miss quote-unquote extended time. Also in Jacksonville, Blaine Gabbert left the game. Caleb Haney finished off that game. Not a lot of information on his injury. It doesn't seem to be as bad as Maurice Jones-Drew, but that's a big hit when your starting quarterback and running back leaves the game.
And certainly the Jaguars, they're not one of the top teams in the NFL, but can make do without these injuries, as those two guys, most notably Maurice Jones-Drew, is the key in their football team to winning games. The Jaguars lost a close one against the Raiders in overtime. Another quarterback that their team would certainly love to have stay on the field. We head over to Washington because the Redskins, despite a terrific effort by Robert Griffin, he comes up short in a big-time matchup. A road victory would have been huge for the Redskins. Now, this was not considered going into the year as a playoff team, but at 3-4 right now, and they could have been 4-3 if not for Eli Manning. Obviously, Robert Griffin, I saw some tremendous throws, Phil, in this game, and Robert Griffin is anything but a rookie, especially this early in the year. I love his composure, his maturity, his toughness, taking the big-time hits, and despite one interception, he looked flawless in this game against the New York Giants, who are ranked in the top 10 as far as defense goes. The Washington Redskins have a franchise-caliber quarterback, and as long as he can stay on the field, the Redskins should be a big-time test for any team in the NFL. The 5-2 Giants had everything that they certainly were reckoning with going into the game. The Redskins, boy, you hate to see them lose, but Robert Griffin is going to be one heck of a player.
Yeah, it's hard to, have good feelings coming out of a loss, but there's a lot of Redskins that will have just that. I mean, if the defense doesn't give up a 77-yard touchdown to Victor Cruz, Washington is walking out of this with the W. And, I've said since the first week when they played New Orleans Saints, RG3 reminds me a lot of Randall Cunningham, and anyone that knows me knows that's my favorite player of all time. He's so diverse. There's so much you got to worry about with him, and I think the sky's the limit. And, I think it goes without saying, the Rookie of the the Rookie of the Year award is all but his at this point.
And Robert Griffin III, I mean, going into this year, he was a guy that, obviously the second overall pick, he's linked to Andrew Luck, but he's in leaps and bounds, seemingly going over his expectations. And going in, I mean, a lot of guys in America, I mean, just they're looking at Robert Griffin. Sure, he's making big-time plays, but they're saying, hey, this guy, he's just a game manager. I would not venture to do that because right now, with a 70% completion rate, this guy can certainly complete the football. And an 8.5 yards per play average. This guy throwing the ball down the field with tremendous accuracy, he will be a threat in the coming years because certainly he has the kind of toughness after a big-time loss. He takes the loss after a tremendous performance, and this was not the kind of game that he wants to brag on his performance. He's been completely hot all year long, a 102 quarterback rating. He's in the reckoning for best quarterback statistics of all time. This guy certainly is flinging it deep time and time again with accuracy and with precision. Robert Griffin III, he's already set for a Pro Bowl appearance in his rookie year. And the whole Washington squad, this young rookie at running back as well, Alfred Morris, a tremendous football player. The Redskins going into the year, not a lot of expectations, but for the next couple of years, this division is up in the air. The Washington Redskins, Phil, might be a team to reckon with in the coming years, almost beating one of the best teams in the NFC and the New York Giants. Obviously, the Redskins will be a team to reckon with in the coming years.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those situations, he does have to learn a little bit more. You look, athletically, this guy can do anything. Anything you ask him to do, he's going to be able to do it for you. The thing of it is, there's 10 other guys on that team with him. So the more not that he's a selfish player by any means, he's a very team-oriented guy, but the longer he's in this system, the more they have players there that stay there, offensive linemen and receivers don't jump around, and he keeps the same core guys. That's what made him such a success in his senior year at Baylor. Here he is 4 years later playing with the same group, knowing what everybody does right, what everybody does wrong. It's just the unity that made the Baylor Bears so good last year, and I think the same thing can happen with him at the helm with the Washington Redskins. They got a good run game. They have a potential Pro Bowler also at running back if things keep up there. So really just a good team as long as there's time to gel. I think the thing that Washington as an organization, as a fan base, the one thing they have to not do is push for too much too soon. To me, the difference between RG3 and, say, Cam Newton, because they're both, leaps and bounds gifted athletically, is just the attitude that RG3 has is leaps and bounds better than Cam Newton's. I think he's just a more team-oriented guy, and it's not all about him. So when things don't go right, I would much rather have someone like RG3 than, say, Cam Newton in the huddle.
Cam Newton, I mean, we'll get to that topic more later on in the show, but just slumped, heads down, completely, and a lack of enthusiasm, and he's not taking the team on his back. Washington has their own quarterback that has a much different attitude and seemingly the same skill set in a sense. You mentioned that, obviously being a Philly fan, it hits at home when a guy like Robert Griffin has the same kind of ability as Randall Cunningham. But he also kind of reminds me of a guy like Steve McNair because a tremendous mind and certainly a guy off the field, a huge community leader, and on the field just a tremendous arm, a rocket-powered arm, and obviously very accurate. And Robert Griffin is seemingly, the game's already slowed down in leaps and bounds for this rookie. And going even after a week 1 win against the Saints, his toughness is on tap every week. And obviously a lot of criticism on this rookie quarterback, but he's certainly taken the hits and has gotten up strong. And the Redskins have a big-time quarterback. And as long as he can have the sort of team around him that can win, you mentioned you got to have the other 10 guys that are going to be able to provide the talent that the Redskins need to win and go deep in the playoffs. I mean, this division outside of the Giants just seems to be unstable every single week, and they could certainly use some big play receivers and perhaps a defense. And if that's the case, then the Redskins are a team to reckon with in the coming years. They've certainly gotten things going, and Shanahan is a winning coach. He's won a Super Bowl. So the Redskins just need more talent around him, and this Washington squad will be good to go in the coming years. And not the same for Cam Newton in Carolina. But, the Redskins are certainly a team that's going to be good in the coming years. And also, Phil, another game update over in Chicago. What do you have for us in the quarterback situation? I see we have a difference in quarterbacks. Phil, what do you have?
Well, we're just hitting halftime here. Still 10-0 to score the same here with the Bears leading at halftime. Right at the end of the half, the Bears did have the ball, and Jay Cutler ended up going into the locker room, and they left Jason Campbell out there to lead the last drive of the quarter, and there was no point scored. There's nothing. He only completed one pass for 1 yard. It's interesting. I'm not sure if, it was something as simple as, well, we're just going to take it easy in these last couple seconds and, run the ball out, because they didn't put the ball in the air. They didn't make an attempt to drive down the field late, even though they had a timeout or two left. They just kind of ran the ball and ran out the clock. So maybe it's just a situation of, okay, let's get him in the locker room early so we can figure out what's wrong with him. So I will definitely give you an update when we come out of the locker room to see if Campbell is still under center or if Cutler gets the shot or the bandage or whatever it is he needs to keep playing. It'll be interesting to see who's under center for the Bears after halftime.
And Phil, you mentioned before the show that sometime in the coming weeks you did expect Campbell to get more time in the starting offensive unit. And Jay Cutler, he just takes far too many shots, I believe, as the Bears still have plenty of offensive issues as far as protecting the passer. And with a 10-0 lead, in a sense, you might want to save Cutler for his better throws in the fourth quarter than forcing him in, because the Detroit offense has done nothing on 5 first downs. And obviously 6 punts is not going to get it done. The offense has done nothing in the first half, so you might want to just keep Campbell in. He can make a throw or two. He's not a rookie quarterback. He's had his experience in the league with the, starting for the Raiders. Might as well plug him in, keep Cutler for the fourth quarter, and just run the footballs. That's what you've done on over 100 yards rushing in only one half.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to how much did they trust Jason Campbell. Here's a team with a 10-point lead. You got a half of football left. Most teams would have a backup quarterback that you would plug into that situation, say 10-point lead, protect the lead, maybe add 1 touchdown on there, even if it's on the ground, see what you can do about it. But I've always been a huge fan of Jason Campbell. From his days with the Redskins, I always thought he was a good quarterback. He was just not in the right system, and it killed me to see what happened to him in Oakland, because I thought that team was really going somewhere before his injury. And, of course, then they trade for Carson Palmer, who's someone who I've never really been a big fan of. Sorry if there's any Carson Palmer fans out there. Never been a big fan of him. Didn't like how he handled the situation in Cincinnati, and they might have won this week, but Palmer's an older guy. He's definitely not the long-term answer in Oakland anyway. Like I said, just been a big fan of him. I hated to see what happened to him because I really thought that team was going somewhere. And I said to many people that if Cutler goes down, which could very well happen, with a combination of his playing style and the way that offensive line doesn't really block for him as well as they should or could, that if Campbell gets his shot, don't be surprised if he runs with it, Bears fans.
And Jay Cutler is certainly one of those guys that can rally his troops. And the Chicago Bears last year were on a roll going to the playoffs until he got injured, along with also the Matt Forte as well. So for the Bears, as long as they have their key group of guys in the lineup, they should be a team to reckon with in the playoffs going deep, as this team is flying under the radar. Cutler and the Bears, certainly a hot team in the coming weeks. Coming up next on the NFL Goal Line with Nick Rice and Phil Nunziata. Obviously, we had a big-time game between the Patriots and the Jets. We'll be right on that right after the commercial break. But first, the trip to Green Bay as a 30-20 victory over the Rams give more hype to that team against the St. Louis Rams. Are the Packers a team to reckon with? Are they going to go on a big-time run, or is this team just riding a couple wins? All that questions and more, including the Houston Texans. Are they the best team in the AFC? All that and more coming up next on the NFL Goal Line. This is Nick Rice and Phil Nunziata. Welcome back to the NFL Goal Line. This is Nick Rice, and along with Phil Nunziata, we are here to recap Week 7 around the National Football League, and obviously the big topic in the NFL every single